Hello, everyone, and welcome. We'll just give it another minute before we get started, just to make sure everybody is getting in before we get started. All right, it is now 9:01, so we're going to get started. Hello, Ani, bonjour, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for the Helping You Fill Jobs, the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program webinar. My name is Tammy Flood, and I am a lead analyst with Northern Policy Institute. I lead our community capacity team, which covers our population growth projects. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with us, NPI is Northern Ontario's regional think tank. And while we do much more than just population growth work, all of our work does share the common goal of supporting the growth of sustainable Northern communities. We perform research, analyze data, and disseminate ideas. Our mission is to enhance Northern Ontario's capacity to take the lead position on socioeconomic policy that impacts our communities, our province, country, and our world. Our permanent offices are in Thunder Bay and Kirkland Lake, and we have a satellite office in North Bay, which is where I am coming to you from today. In the summer, we host our Experience North placements in various offices throughout Northern Ontario. And our Experience North offers a variety of 4-month placements to students to learn firsthand about public policy, building human capital, and experience in the North. But before we begin, I would like to start off with acknowledging the First Peoples on whose traditional territories we live and work. NPI is grateful for the opportunity to have our offices located on these lands and thank all the generations of people who have taken care of the land. Our Thunder Bay office is on Robinson Superior Treaty Territory, and the land is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg and Fort William First Nation. Our Kirkland Lake office is on the Robinson Huron Treaty Territory, and the land is the traditional territory of Cree, Ojibwe, and Algonquin peoples, as well as Beaver House First Nation. I am coming to you today from North Bay, which is on the territory of the Robinson Huron Treaty of 1850, and the land on which I am at is Nipissing First Nation traditional territory and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg. I respect and am grateful to be on these lands with all of our relations. NPI recognizes and appreciates the historic connection that Indigenous people have to these territories. We support their efforts to sustain and grow their nations and also recognize the contributions that they have made in shaping and strengthening local communities, the province, and Canada. I encourage everyone to take a moment and reflect on the territory in which you are in today. So we are here today to have a discussion about the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. The OINP is an immigration process that helps fill labor gaps and can help promote economic immigration in the North and support employers in our region to fill their talent needs. Employers can leverage the OINP to retain or attract highly skilled immigrants ready to contribute to their organization's success. So today during this session, you will learn about the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program and how your organization can leverage it to retain or hire foreign skilled individuals to contribute to your workplace, how it complements the federal immigration pathways, how to leverage the right immigration pathway for your talent challenge, about the application process, and how the program can help employers navigate the immigration system through their business immigration services. So today we have Shaloma Gauthier with us. She is from the Ministry of Labor, Immigration Training, and Skills Development, and will deliver a presentation followed by a Q&A session. Shaloma has had several management roles with the OPS, as the manager of the Immigration Promotion and Employer Outreach Unit with the ministry. Shaloma and her team provide tailored services to help employers find talent solutions and navigate the complex federal and provincial immigration systems to fill labor shortages and attract skilled workers faster. Before joining the OPS, Shaloma completed her PhD in International History and Politics at the Graduate Institute of International and Development Studies in Geneva, Switzerland. And during her studies, she conducted multidisciplinary research in English and French at numerous international organizations, such as the International Labor Organization, the International Committee of the Red Cross, and the United Nations Organization. Now, before I hand it over to Shaloma, just a few housekeeping items. We just ask that everybody make sure that their microphones are on mute during the presentation. The webinar is being recorded and will be shared on our YouTube channel and on our website. My colleague Patrick is monitoring the chat, so if you are having any technical difficulties, please reach out to him via the chat. Shaloma's presentation will be approximately 30-35 minutes, and we will follow up with a Q&A session at the end. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat box, and Patrick and I will monitor them for you. All right, so I'm just going to stop sharing and pass it over to Shaloma.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tammy. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. It is a pleasure to be here. Before I share my screen, I just wanted to make a couple of remarks. I have been watching the work of the NPI from afar for a long time. You do incredible work, and Charles, I'm always so astounded to see how passionate you are about everything. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to work more closely with you and your team and various stakeholders in the North. It's a new year, a new beginning. We are a new unit situated within the backdrop of the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. So I think there is much important work ahead. And so I'm really looking forward to dialoguing, collaboration, and information sharing. So as Tammy said, and thank you, Tammy. Tammy and I have been emailing back and forth to organize this event. I see we have 41 participants and growing, and so really excited to be here today. So without further ado, I will share my screen, and let's hope that there are no technical glitches, but we will go with the flow. We practiced this before, so it should work. Let's see. So let me know if you see my screen.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, perfect. And I'm going to put it on presentation mode. Fantastic. All right. So today, as Tammy announced, I will be talking to you about the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. And hopefully for some of you, it'll be a refresher. For others, it will be new information about the provincial nominee program. Now, immigration is a very complicated landscape. There are constantly new programs, new initiatives, new policies that are being introduced. So I'm really hopeful that today you will walk away with, a very concrete understanding of what we do of the provincial nominee program. And if not, you will have the information that we offer one-on-one consultation services with businesses, employers, and stakeholders. So you are free to reach out whenever, and we will walk you through the process. In terms of the objectives of this presentation, in addition to really going over some of the sort of traits and idiosyncrasies of the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, we also really want to share developments about the creation of this new unit, Immigration Promotion and Employer Outreach. And as Tammy said in her introduction, I am the manager of this incredible team. A lot of the team members are on the call right now. So huge shout out to them because they have been so enthusiastic in this new journey because we were only created in May of 2023. So it is the first era, the first chapter of this unit. And as I mentioned, we are really all about promoting the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, which, although our unit is new, the program is not new. It was created in 2007. So in terms of the OINP, what is it? How does it work? It really does operate in partnership with Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, which I'll now refer to as IRCC. I know we tend to use a lot of acronyms. I'll always be mindful of introducing the acronym before I then launch into the use of it throughout the presentation. And OINP is OINP, so you'll see that often. So in terms of our relationship with IRCC, I think it's so important to understand that it is a shared jurisdiction. It is a collaboration. It is a partnership. And that does have an impact on certain things when it comes to processing times and decisions that we can make and we cannot make. And I think it's always really important to delineate roles and responsibilities as well as the scope. And in terms of what we do, the OINP, is that we nominate workers for permanent residence who have the skills needed in Ontario. I'll just echo what Tammy said and ask everyone to please mute themselves if you can. I know we're a large group. Thank you so much. So it's about nominating economic immigrants for permanent residence. Now, I do want to define what nomination means. Nomination does not mean permanent residence. Nomination means we provide a certificate. It is a pathway to permanent residence. Once someone is nominated by the OINP, they have to apply to the federal government for permanent residence. So that comes back to that theme of delineating roles and responsibilities. The other aspect, which is important to note, and it's the third bullet here, is that the OINP is administered through the Ontario Immigration Act and its regulations. So simply put, it means that the decisions that we make when assessing applications are not arbitrary, but they are anchored in program criteria, they are anchored in regulations. Objectives for the OINP. And throughout this presentation, I'm also going to intersperse the role that we are doing. So I mentioned our new unit, the Immigration Promotion and Employer Outreach. I'll now refer to that as IPEO. So that'll be the acronym for our unit. Is that in addition to nominating economic immigrants who have the skills needed in Ontario's labor market, we also have a principal strong focus on skilled trades and the health sector. And so a lot of the outreach that we do, a lot of the promotion that we do is going to be aligned with those priority sectors. We also offer a pathway for Ontario employers to hire and retain skilled workers, and also a pathway for international students who are seeking permanent residence in Ontario. We also, and this is something I really want to emphasize, we also really try to encourage economic immigration across Ontario. Now, I am based in Toronto today, I will say that, but we're really trying to promote economic immigration outside of the Greater Toronto area to the northern part of Ontario as well, which I'm excited to talk to all of you about later on in the presentation. Additionally, we attract and support Francophone immigration to Ontario. So this is really the essence and the mainstay of the OINP in terms of its principal objectives. Now, I know we love our numbers, we love our facts and our figures, and I'm going to pause on this because it's kind of an important slide. So 2022 was a historic year for the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. Historic because, as you can see, in 2022, we had just under 10,000 nominations. Now, when I say nominations, the nomination allocation is something that is granted to us annually by the federal government. So once again, you see that theme of collaboration. So we don't determine, we, the province, we do not determine the nomination allocation. That is something that is provided by the federal government. So in 2022, as you can see, it was just under 10,000. In 2023, it was augmented to 16,500. That is the biggest increase we've ever seen in a nomination allocation from one year to the next. Now we still have a way to go, but that is a pretty big increase. And it also really sort of explains, in addition to talking to stakeholders about the need for the creation of a new unit, it really also explains the need for having a unit that is really, its mandate is all about generating information and awareness about the provincial nominee program. So in terms of the essence of the OINP, because I talked a lot about the program, but in terms of how it is structured, there are 8 streams through which foreign workers can be nominated. And these 8 streams are subdivided into 2 principal categories: the human capital and the employer job offer. And I'm going to disentangle all elements of these. And by the way, it's exciting to be talking about immigration before. It's not even 10 o'clock here, so I'm loving this topic, and that's something that makes me very happy to go to work on a daily basis. All right, the streams. So as I mentioned, there are two principal categories. And I'm going to first start talking a little bit about the employer job offer category, because with the inception of our unit, this is something that we're really trying to work on in terms of sharing information that will be helpful, that will be useful, that will be palatable to employers. Because as I mentioned, immigration, there are a lot of programs. So when we do have these one-on-one consultations, we really want to sit down with employers to have them, gain a firm understanding of how the employer job offer streams work, how they could leverage them to either retain or hire foreign workers, and their roles and responsibilities as well. So in terms of the employer job offer streams, there are three principal streams: the foreign worker stream, the international student stream, and the in-demand skill stream. Now, one thing I wanted to note, and I didn't actually mention this at the beginning of the presentation, and there's a date at the beginning of the presentation, which is today's date, February 14th. So everything that I'm talking about is applicable, is relevant today. It is obviously subject to change tomorrow because there are obvious new changes. However, what we have done to guide you is we've inserted links, hyperlinks throughout the deck. So you will always have access and you'll always be directed to the real source. So if there are changes, you just click on the link and you'll be aware of what's happened. And I would encourage all of you to always maybe bookmark the OINP program updates page, because it's a really good resource for everything that is ongoing in the program. We try to really communicate with stakeholders if there are invitation to apply rounds, if there are significant, program updates. So it's a good resource for you because it really does curate all of the pertinent information. So all of these are hyperlinks, which you'll be able to delve into. But I do want to sort of emphasize some of the key benefits of the employer job offer streams. So firstly, I'll hone in on this point. All of the three employer job offer streams are labor market impact assessment exempt. Now, for any employers on the call, I'm sure that you're very familiar with that process. And you also know that when hiring foreign workers, and if you have to go through the LMIA process, it is onerous, it is very time consuming, it is costly. So all three of the employer job offer streams are LMIA exempt. So that is a key piece to retain. And the employer job offer streams are really there to really help businesses in Ontario hire and retain skilled talent. And these are individuals who are ultimately seeking permanent residence. In terms of the human capital streams, we have the master's graduate stream and the PhD graduate stream. And these are for, high capital individuals with the language, education, professional experience, and other competencies. And then we also have the three below, and this is once again that theme of collaboration with the federal government. These three work in conjunction with the federal government's express entry system. So you have human capital priority stream, skilled trade stream, and the French-speaking skilled worker stream. So as I mentioned, we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the employer job offer streams. So as I mentioned, you have the foreign worker, you have international student, and you have the in-demand skills stream. And we've delineated who it's for on the side. And you can see that for the foreign worker stream, this is for foreign workers who have at least 2 years of experience in the same occupation as the job that is being offered. And we've outlined the fact that there are eligibility requirements for the job offer, the applicant, and the employer. Now, as far as the job offer is concerned, it has to be a full-time permanent job offer that is being offered. The applicant also, depending upon the stream, there are specific requirements that they have to meet. And similarly for the employer, and we'll talk about the criteria as it applies to the northern part of Ontario. So it's always important, and this is something that we do in our consultations as well, is that we will walk through the criteria, because sometimes we have meetings with employers. We've actually had a lot of meetings with employers from the north who are interested in pursuing this pathway. And after talking to them, sometimes they say, you know what, the OINP is definitely for us, we're going to pursue it. Other times it's not for them, but at least they have an understanding of how it works and the criteria as well. Now, what we've tried to do, and this is something that's of utmost importance to our team, is that we really try to ensure that when we communicate, we're communicating effectively. So we've come up with example scenarios to really try to resonate with companies and with employers. So I'm going to sort of walk you through this specific example of, an employer who is interested in potentially exploring one of the employer job offer streams. It's obviously, this is fictitious. This is not based on a real company. Just want to flag that. So here we have a construction company, a company that has been in existence for over 16 years. It is located in Sudbury, Ontario, and they currently have 20 employees. So this construction company is currently employing an individual by the name of Omar on a short-term contract as a construction laborer. Now, Omar has a temporary work permit, and it's going to be expiring in 6 months. And the employer is absolutely keen on ensuring that Omar can stay. Omar has expressed a desire to actually seek permanent residence and a desire to stay in the community, which is a key piece. So because they're part of that community, they feel welcome. They've established a life there. And so this employer wants to do everything that they possibly can to ensure that this individual can stay. So this is where they hear about the OINP through one of these similar type presentations, and they want to explore one of the streams. And the stream that they explore is something called the Employer Job Offer in Demand Skills Stream. And this employer, and this is once again the key piece, is willing to offer a full-time permanent job offer. And this is the in-demand skill stream. And we've created a whole compendium of appendices for you today, where we've outlined information that will hopefully be useful for you. And the thing that's important here is the in-demand skill stream. There are 22 eligible NOCs. NOC stands for National Occupational Classification Code, and this is how every job in Canada has a corresponding 5-digit NOC, which really outlines the roles, responsibilities of a specific job. So there's 22 that apply to this specific stream. So they decide they're going to keep Omar. They offer full-time permanent job offer. Omar meets all of the other eligibility criteria of the stream, including having certain, language competencies, having worked for at least 9 months in Ontario in the same job. So that's, again, the criteria. And so it's a perfect match. We've put here the website link for the complete list of the program requirements, but this really does sort of flesh it out at a high level. Now, in terms of, I mentioned one of the themes is that we really do try to support economic immigration outside of the Greater Toronto area. And one of the ways that we've done that is through the OINP's expression of interest stream. So I just want to pause and sort of talk about what the expression of interest actually means and how we define that. So for some of the streams, when you're at the very beginning of the application process, the applicant needs to create something called an expression of interest, and that's done so via the OINP's portal. And the thing that's super important, this is something we try to communicate extensively. An EOI is fairly simple to do in that it's almost, imagine it like a truncated application, because you're not submitting any supporting documents, you're not paying any fees, it's free of charge. But it's so important that everything in the EOI is accurate, is truthful, captures professional experience, language competencies as they are on that present day, not projecting out into the future, because it is based upon all of the information that is input in the EOI that a score is attributed, and it's based on that score that the individual is then invited to apply to the program. And what we've outlined here is how some of the scoring is designed to award maximum points to individuals who have either studied physically at an institution in Northern Ontario or who are working or planning to work for an employer in Northern Ontario. So as you can see, this chart sort of maps out the points for those who would be in the City of Toronto, Greater Toronto area versus those who are, in Northern Ontario. So that's just something for all of you to bear in mind when those EOIs are being submitted. We talked a little bit about, in one of the slides, I had those 3 bullets where we talked about specific requirements for the employer. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that now. So in order to be eligible, there are a couple of aspects that need to be met by the employer. So there are wage stipulations. So we talked about the permanent full-time job offer. So in order to ensure that everything is aligned there, we need to ensure that the job must meet or exceed the median wage. And one thing that I just want to sort of give you a sneak peek of what we're going to be working on is short little videos that are helpful and sort of almost like short tutorials, because sometimes you say, oh, you have to know what the median wage is. And the employer is not necessarily versed in knowing where the job bank is or looking it up in the corresponding region. So we're going to do these short videos that sort of really show, like, this is actually how you look it up and what you do, to be as helpful as possible. But that's something that's very important to note about meeting or exceeding the median wage for the foreign worker and in-demand skill stream, and for the international student stream, it must meet or exceed the low wage. Now, in terms of requirements for the company, this is very important. So the company must have been operational for at least 3 years. They have to have a minimum total gross revenue for the most recent complete fiscal year of $500,000 if it's in anything outside of the GTA, so specifically Northern Ontario. And they must currently be employing 3 full-time employees who are permanent residents or Canadian citizens. So this is the criteria as it stands. This is the criteria today. And, you know, one of the things that's really interesting, and one of the things that I kind of find super fascinating when I have these one-on-one consultations, is it is an incredible way for us to gather feedback, because we're hearing a lot from employers about what works, what doesn't work, are there barriers? And again, my team is not about, we don't hold the pen on those changes. However, we are very keen on communicating and sharing information because we're uniquely situated to gather this feedback. And it's not in the form of formal consultation. It's like in these one-on-one meetings. So I think that's been an incredible byproduct of the work that we do, is to continuously gather feedback and to hear from employers from throughout the province of Ontario. In terms of what employers need to know, as I mentioned previously, employer job offer streams do not require a labor market impact assessment. And this is really, really key, because I've had so many conversations with employers where they say to me, okay, Shaloma, I'm frustrated with the OIMP and the LMIA is really hard for me to do. At which point I say, well, you don't need an LMIA for the OIMP. What they do need for 2 of the 3 employer job offer streams, so the international student one is exempt from this, they need to demonstrate recruitment activities. They need to demonstrate that they tried to find a Canadian citizen or permanent residence and that they recruited for at least 4 weeks using 2 different platforms. Now, often, by the time we have these consultations with the employers, they've already been doing recruitment activities sometimes for 6 months, 8 months, a year, because a lot of the employers who will come and turn towards the OIMP, it's because they can't find the local talent to fill those positions, hence them having to seek other opportunities and pathways to hire or retain foreign workers. Another element, once the foreign worker is nominated by the OIMP, they receive 2 things. The first thing they receive is a work permit support letter. So this enables them to apply to the federal government for a work permit. And so remember, that's a different department. That's not us. And they also get a certificate, a nomination certificate. And they have to apply to IRCC within 6 months. And that's important to note, 6 months of receiving that certificate. So those are the 2 documents that they receive from the OIMP. So as I mentioned at the beginning, immigration shared space between the federal government, provinces, and territories. The OIMP doesn't actually issue permanent residence, but we issue the key document that then enables them to apply for permanent residence. Another really important element, because I've heard from employers, well, you know, they'll leave, but no, actually, because the job offer is tied to a specific location, it is tied to a specific company. So to remain eligible for nomination, the applicant needs to stay in the approved position until they receive permanent residence. So that does create that linkage between the employer and the foreign worker. I always find that this diagram is of particular use when speaking to employers, because they always ask 3 questions. They always ask, what do I have to do? How much will it cost me? What is the time frame? Do I do the application process? So I always explain that in terms of the employer job offer streams, it is entirely applicant led. So it is the applicant who first starts with registering the expression of interest. And we talked a little bit about the EOI previously in terms of the scoring. So the applicant registers the EOI. Once they register the EOI, they are then in the pool, and the EOI is scored. It's based on a score that they receive the invitation to apply from the OINP. And then step number 3, at that juncture, they submit the application The applicant pays the fee, $1,500 for anything in Northern Ontario, and that's when the employer comes in, and the employer has to provide the job offer, the signed job offer, and the duly completed employer form, which then is provided and submitted with the application. So that box at the bottom there, that's really where the employer steps in. And something I always encourage, between the applicant and employer is continuous communication and dialogue between both of them throughout the journey and the process, because that's obviously a really important aspect. And then number 4, as we had already talked about, once the application is approved, the OINP provides a certificate of nomination and a work permit support letter, and then they have to apply to Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada within 6 months of receiving the nomination. So this just really sort of visually maps out the key steps and the process in terms of the employer job offer streams. All right. Human capital streams. So we've been talking a lot about the employer job offer streams because those are the ones that tend to generate a lot of interest with the stakeholders with whom we engage. But there are, as I had previously mentioned, a subset of the human capital streams as well, and we've outlined all of them here. I'm not going to go into them in great detail. The one thing I will flag sort of from the employer perspective is, whereas in the employer job offer streams, the job offer is a mandatory component of the application process and it has to be full-time and permanent. With the express entry streams, the job offer is not mandatory. However, with express entry, if there is a job offer, it can be a temporary job offer, the individual gets more points in express entry. So this is also something else that can be explored in terms of maybe there's, you don't want to offer that full-time permanent job offer, but there's another way that you can work in tandem with a foreign worker in terms of their immigration journey and process. So that's just something to bear in mind. And that is something that we do try to sort of point out when we do these consultations as well. Okay, how can we help? So as I've mentioned, our unit was created, May of last year. And what we've done here is I've sort of delineated the buckets and the pillars of work for your awareness so that you have sort of key insight in terms of how we are managing our day-to-day, what our strategy, what our vision is, and sort of the principal buckets. So we have the outreach and engagement, and I'll sort of maybe pause and talk a little bit about some of the things that we do. So in addition to virtual presentations, I'm super keen on the in-person now. I think, it's very practical sometimes to be able to just click the button and show up virtually. But I find that the level of connectivity, the understanding and the communication, it just enters in an entirely different realm when you have that ability to make eye contact with employers and talk to them and follow up after by the coffee table and just, be able to engage in meaningful dialogue. So in-person presence is a huge priority, and we are going to be moving throughout the province of Ontario quite a bit. We already have been. So that's something to note. We are also quite present at trade shows and exhibits. And those are often aligned with our priority sectors of health and skilled trades. So we will be, for instance, at PDAC or PDAC. I've heard it referred to both. We were recently at EDCO, Economic Developers Council of Ontario. We were at Roma in January, and the list goes on and on. So just having a presence on the ground, and you never know when a conversation will just abound and will turn towards the OINP. And sometimes, employers or stakeholders, they won't actually understand where immigration fits into their broader planning. But all of a sudden, as we start conversing and dialoguing, they realize, oh, it is linked to inclusive hiring practice. It is linked to workforce development strategies. And they start thinking, and you can sort of see that their mind is going in a million different directions. And then they follow up and they have a call. And that's where things start, happening. And I always say to employers, it's important. The thing about immigration is it takes time. Like OINP is not an expedited, accelerated process. It is an immigration pathway like any pathway. So it's important to set this planning in motion now for 5 years down the road. So that's the outreach and engagement, marketing and promotion as well. We're starting to have more of a presence on social media. We have a great senior marketing team. And we're doing, we're on the MLITSD's LinkedIn page. We're on X, I always want to say Twitter, Facebook, and just really trying to generate awareness about the OINP. The business services, as I've mentioned, we do the one-on-one consultation services where you won't get a toll-free number. You will get a person, you will get a personalized email, you will have that person, we'll have someone to talk to you as it pertains to immigration. And then we're always pursuing a number of special projects in alignment with our priorities. Oopsies. All right. This one got a little messed up, but that's okay. We just go with it. In terms of our outreach activities, we did want to sort of give you a little bit more insight into what we are doing. So I've talked a little bit about the presentations, and we presented to Mind Connect because we are really supporting that sector as well. The in-person stakeholder outreach, but I'll kind of focus maybe on the expos because we are going to be coming to Northern Ontario quite a bit in the coming months. So Timmins, Sudbury, and Thunder Bay. And this is also something I'm always trying to find like opportunities to double up, so to speak. So when we are in Timmins, in Sudbury, and Thunder Bay, if there are other opportunities, now that you know that we're going to be there, we would be so happy to do other presentations, to have in-person meetings. So it's really an opportunity to and it's only February, and this is already what is projected. And these are booked, these are planned, and these exhibits and trade shows, like they are very popular too. I mean, we've already booked our booths because they often have 1 or 2 booths left. So if there are other events where you would like an OINP presence, please feel free to reach out to myself or my team, because we're always seeking, we proactively seek out and generate our own leads, but we are also very receptive to leads being generated for us by interested stakeholders. And yeah, we've had a ton of, as I mentioned, and anecdotally, I've been referencing a lot of the meetings that we've had with employers from the north, but there have been a ton of meetings and more meetings booked and more to come. We've talked a little bit about our services, and OINP, as you know, is obviously very firmly aligned with permanent pathways. So when we talk to employers, we talk about how they can support a foreign worker in that respect. But we are also a referral partner with the federal government. And this taps into the temporary pathway opportunities. And so a lot of employers don't know that this is a strategy that actually exists via Canada's Global Skills Strategy, and we've linked it here, so you can do a little bit more reading following the presentation. And there are less than 60 referral partners throughout the country. I think there's about 10 or so in the province of Ontario. These are free services, and I'll kind of give you a scenario of how you could leverage first the global talent stream or the dedicated service channel. So in terms of the global talent stream, imagine a mining company is trying to hire a CEO who has a specialized, unique skill set from Belgium. And so they haven't been able to find someone here. So we put together a proposal demonstrating that the company is innovative, it's scaling up, that this is someone with a very specialized skill set. We do a referral. Once successful and it goes to the federal government, they get expedited. So here you get the expedite. We talked about expedited and OINP not being expedited, but here expedited. And you get expedited labor market impact assessment and work permit processing, 10 business days. So it's really something for companies to explore when they're, and employers to explore when it is for a unique specialized skill set. So that's one aspect. Dedicated service channel. Now this would apply to, again, we'll use a mining company that wants to hire, let's say 100 temporary foreign workers. They want to figure out like, how do we navigate the immigration system? They're also growing, they're expanding. We can do a referral to the federal government demonstrating that, this company really needs assistance and help. And what they get, if they're successful, is a dedicated outreach officer from Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada to guide them through the immigration process. So these are 2 strategies to really bear in mind. And once again, when we sort of we do the suite of services, these are something that we do talk about this, because global talent stream can sometimes turn into an OINP, employer job offer, foreign worker nomination down the road. So there's definitely a synergy there, but this is something we'd be happy to share more information with you about at a subsequent session. This kind of goes, and I think I sort of delved into this verbally already, but you'll have this at your fingertips once we share the slide with you. But this really goes into some of the aspects and components of Canada's global skills strategy. Okay, we're actually, I think I'm doing well for time. I can't even see the time. Yeah, we've got about 20 minutes left. So we did, populate some discussion questions. But before we go to the discussion questions, I'm gonna veer into probably my favorite part of the deck, or this is our business immigration contact information. So as I mentioned, if you reach out to this address, you will get a person or a meeting. So do not be hesitant to do so if you have any questions following the presentation today. I know it's a lot of material. So as I mentioned, the appendix. And so this is kind of, as they say in French, la crème de la crème, because we've tried to sort of curate the links and the resources for you in terms of like what will be helpful. Searching for wages for your job offer, for instance, information about educational credential assessment, and then the streams as well. At the beginning, I mentioned the employer job offer in demand skills stream and the fact that there are 22 eligible occupations. All of these occupations would be eligible for the northern part of Ontario, so you might recognize some of them here. Not too long ago, I think in the fall of last year, there was a consultation that was led by my manager counterpart in the program development unit, and to sort of hear about what other NOCs could be included here as well. So I know that they're in the process of rolling up all of that feedback. They did a ton of stakeholder consultations, so we're hoping to see some of the results of those consultations soon. But for now, as it stands today, these are the NOCs that are currently eligible. This is how you find your NOC. So this will provide you with some information on how to just navigate the website. And one of the things that one of the themes, and we're starting to gather these trends. So as I mentioned, the employer job offer streams are premised upon a full-time permanent job offer, and it has to align with a specific NOC. It's always so important for the employer to ensure that they're not just creating like a new hybrid NOC, and that when they're creating, so let's use, the term senior manager or a welder, that it's actually aligned with the description that is on the federal government's website. So it's really important to these are some of the best practices that we're gathering. So it's important to just make sure you're mindful of details like that could cause some complications down the road. Key terms and definitions, got all of those. So you've got a whole list there, so feel free to peruse that. And then we added some more scenarios for you, so you can look at this a little bit more. And this goes into some more depth in terms of the employer job offer in demand skills stream. So you can see here we've added a little bit more detail in terms of the company and the individual and their eligibility criteria. Same for the foreign worker stream and the human capital priority stream. And last but not least, because this is something that is constantly asked of us, is how to apply to the Ontario Express Entry streams, because these again work in collaboration with the federal government. So you can really see how the process works in terms of the individual creating their profile on IRCC's portal, and then express an interest to reside in Ontario is the key piece, because once they do that, then we, the Provincial Nominee Program, OINP, we can see the pool, and we can also invite individuals to apply. All right, I'm at slide 32 of 32, and so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we can, hopefully we're okay for time, but yeah. I'm going to take a my tea.
Yes, great. Thank you, Shaloma. That was a really wonderful and informative presentation. So we are getting some questions up in the chat, and I'm just going to try and pull them up here.
Do I have access to the chat too, or let me see?
You should, but it seems my access may be gone. Oh, here we go. All right, so I'm going to start with the first question. How many points are added to a successfully nominated skilled worker through the EJO stream in Express Entry?
Okay, so one thing I'm first going to flag is that the employer job offer streams, these work through the OINP's portal. So in order to actually launch an application there, you have to go to OINP's portal, and so it's separate from Express Entry. Express Entry, you create your profile online through IRCC's website and their portal. Now, the huge value and advantage, and I didn't delve into this more specifically, is when an individual comes through the Express Entry system, they're nominated by the province of Ontario, they receive 600 points, which really enhances the viability of their profile on IRCC's Express Entry portal. So they get 600 points there. With the EJO streams, we don't work in alignment with the express entry system. So once an individual, a foreign worker, comes through some of the employer job offer streams, once they're scored initially, the EOI scoring. And I'm happy to go through, like I did have a slide that had the EOI scoring components as it pertained to Northern Ontario, but I'm happy to walk you through all the scores that's currently on our website as well. And they're nominated. So they don't get, once that their EOI is scored, based on that, they're invited to apply, then they're nominated. And once nominated, they receive the work permit support letter plus their certificate. So those are the things that they receive. So I hope that answered your question, Rami.
Yeah, and feel free to unmute yourself and follow up if you had a follow-up question to that. Okay, awesome. We'll go to the next one. For the human capital priority stream, does the employer who has that job offer need to still have a revenue greater than 500,000?
Yes, so that's a great question. And so as I mentioned previously, with the 3 employer job offer streams, there are specific requirements and eligibility criteria for the applicant, for the job offer, and for the employer. We'll talk about the employer requirements. And again, we're going to talk about all of the criteria that pertains to anything in the northern part of Ontario outside of the Greater Toronto area. So the employer needs to have been in active, operational for at least 3 years. They have to have a total gross annual revenue for the last fiscal year for $500,000. So yes, and they have to currently be employing at least 3 full-time employees. So that is the criteria for, and actually, you're going to laugh. I need to do this. I always have a copy of the employer form with me because it's like the frequently asked questions. And so I always want to make sure that when I am talking to employers, I'm able to literally tell them, this is what you need to put on your form. And so they have to check off, what their actual most recently completed fiscal year prior to application submission is. It's one of the questions here under business revenue and legal structure. One of the other things that I'm always happy to do, because I think it really helps the employers too, is I package up the employer form for them to even look at before they embark upon the OINP journey so that they understand, because a lot of employers are daunted by what is required of them and think they have to fill in 50 pages. So I assure them, no, it's only actually kind of like, you're really only filling in 6 of the 9 pages. This is the information. You can go through it, you can absorb it, you can ask us questions. That way it's really sort of really clear for them in terms of what their responsibilities are. So hopefully that answers Madison's question about the revenue.
Great. Okay. So for the next question, for the foreign worker stream, does application for OINP nomination grant a maintain status for workers whose WP is about to expire?
That's a great question. So one of the things I should also mention, when an individual, so if a foreign worker applies through one of the employer job offer streams and they are successfully nominated, I've mentioned that they receive one of 2 things, either a certificate of nomination or a work permit support letter. The other thing that they can get, if they are currently working and their work permit is about to expire, much like that scenario with Omar, is they get a work permit extension support letter. So if someone is currently working, their work permit is about to, and they're in implied status, then they get a work permit support extension letter from the program. They are able to then apply to the federal government to ensure that they can extend that work permit. And once again, that work permit is tied to the job in question. So there are, again, opportunities to provide, lengthening a work permit that is about to expire, in other words.
Thank you. So our next question, for the EGO foreign worker stream in demand jobs, if in a compulsory trade, have these individuals been vetted to verify their credentials to be employed in these trades by the program or IRCC? If so, what are they provided to verify the credentials for the Ministry of Labor inspectors? Or do they need a trade equivalency assessment or apprenticeship agreement to work in said trades per the provincial regulations?
That's a long one. Okay, so maybe I'll start by maybe just providing a little bit of information too for all of your for all of your awareness. So one of the key relationships that I have been developing, and one of our, wonderful partners, is Skilled Trades Ontario, because they are the ones who determine the licensing, certification, apprenticeship requirements, not us. Now, where we intersect with skilled trades, and I'll sort of want to make this super, super clear, is that, so let's talk about the in-demand, the employer job offer in-demand skill stream, where you have some of the skilled trades that are regulated professions. Anyone who is applying to the employer job offer in-demand skill stream, if it is a profession that is regulated or licensed, they already need to have that licensing, that certification in hand when they're applying. It's not like they can do it and be in transit or in progress. And what we do, and we always refer back to that NOC, the National Occupational Classification website, you will see the job duties, responsibilities of every job. You will see the licensing requirements of every job. And then it's our duty when the assessment, we have, 3 levels of assessment officers. They will look at all of that, requisite documentation. We don't add other certificates and licenses. We rely upon the regulatory bodies. So we look at what they've already determined and decreed, and then we ensure that that applicant has all of the necessary licensing and certification. But as we are working with Skilled Trades Ontario, I'm learning a lot in this space, and because you can't not learn this space, because as I mentioned, our priority sectors are skilled trades and health. So it's important for us to become many experts in our own right. So to do some crash course on all things Skilled Trades Ontario. But one of the things that we do as well is I will bring Skilled Trades Ontario to the table sometimes when I am meeting with employers if they have these pertinent questions. So in our team, we try to be solution oriented, and we try to be facilitators and conduits, so that if we don't have the answer, we at least try to say, okay, we don't have the answer, but we're going to bring the partner that might have the answer, or the stakeholder who might have more information. So that's what I have to say about Skilled Trades Ontario. I'll probably have more to say about regulated professions and licensing down the road, but we'll leave it at that for now.
Great. Thank you, Shaloma. I think we've had a follow-up question. Do you offer services to employers to help connect them to skilled eligible workers?
That's a great, great question. So we'll always want to manage expectations of what we do and what we don't do. We are not a recruitment agency, so we don't actually identify the talent and then match the talent with the employer. We're the pathway. So once the employer, the company, has already identified the talent and has, these options, then we say, okay, this is what we can do. That being said, I will say that we participate, one of the buckets of work we talked about was outreach, and we do participate in international missions. And one of the missions that we participate in alignment with our mandate to promote Francophone immigration is Destination Canada. And it's organized by the embassy in Paris. And we were in Destination Canada in November of last year in Paris and in Rabat, talking to skilled foreign workers who are interested in coming to Ontario. What's unique about that mission is that in addition to us going as a provincial nominee program, there was a delegation of associations from Ontario, of employers who had job offers. And we actually, and this is a call out to all of you as well, when we participate in these missions, that everyone has to pay their own way, so I just want to caveat that, you have an opportunity to come with us. So when we are going on missions, you can, if you're interested in coming to Destination Canada, follow up with me so that I can tell you what that actually looked like when it's taking place, because you can send an association, you can come yourself as an employer if you have the jobs, and then you have, basically you're offering the jobs, you have the individuals talk about the pathway. We had Société Économique Ontario, we have different associations and groups that represent different interests of the province. So that's an opportunity for that talent matching, but we don't do it per se, not right now in any event.
Great, thank you. So we have time for a few more questions. There's one more in the chat. What options we could have if the company doesn't want to fill out the employer form to sponsorship? At the end is not and sponsor, but companies see that if we have a good offer, a good position, experience in that company, permanent job, it's a company known, but they don't want to share the information.
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, it's maybe the company doesn't want to offer that permanent full-time job offer or use one of the OINP's employer job offer streams. So great question, because as I said, sometimes that we have these consultations and employers will say, you know what, not for me. So there are other options. I mean, we obviously promote the OINP. The other options, as I mentioned, in alignment with the business services, exploring global talent stream or the dedicated service channel. But there are other immigration programs out there. There's Mobilité Francophone, Francophone mobility, and I encourage you to Google a little bit more about that. But the thing that's unique about Mobilité Francophone or Francophone mobility is that you can, as an employer, you can offer a job offer. It doesn't have to be permanent, and it's labor market impact assessment exempt. And I know there's a lot of communities in Northern Ontario where bilingualism is of utmost importance, but even with Mobilité Francophone, the individual doesn't actually need to work in French, as long as they can work in English. So there are other opportunities and pathways. So if you were to come, Oscar, I think that was the one who asked the question. If you were to come and say, Shaloma, let's have a one-on-one consultation, what I would actually do is I would say, well, let's talk about other options, and potentially maybe let's talk to IRCC as well, because we want to see what other pathways there are for you to explore. But at least you would hopefully walk away with a firm understanding and sound knowledge of the O, and maybe it's something you'd want to explore later down the road.
All right, thank you. I guess I can open it up if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask over the mic. Charles, did you have any questions or anything that you wanted to add?
No, I'm trying to behave myself over here, Tammy. What are you talking about? Shaloma, I just want to say thank you very much for the presentation. Having worked in this area for a fairly long time, I'm really excited to see this new branch, and I think that the effort that's going into informing Northerners about these opportunities is really important and a great value. That being said, when you were talking to Oscar, it popped into my mind. These individual consultations, they don't have to come to Toronto to see you, right? They can call you or talk to you online.
We're so flexible. You virtual, cell phone, whatever you want, we'll do it. No, they don't have to come to Toronto. No. If you happen to be in Toronto, let us know, and we'll make a meeting. I know a lot of people are coming to Toronto for PDAC, but and as I said, you saw our schedule. We're going to be Timmins, Thunder Bay, Sudbury, so we can always make this. We can come to you as well.
So what about Sioux Lookout, Sioux Narrows, Kenora? Just asking for friends.
Yeah, well, my team, Jennifer Gray, my senior program advisor who's on the call right now, is going to be going to Kenora in March in a couple of weeks. And there she is. Jen, did you want to say like maybe 10 seconds about that really exciting mission that we have that we've been working with really hard?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the opportunity just to jump on and say hi. So I have the honor of coming up to the region in March, and I will be joined with a colleague from IRCC who's based in Winnipeg and covers your region. And we're going to be collaboratively providing some community-based sessions for stakeholders and employers to come and meet with us. Fortunately, there'll be IRCC and OINP in the same room and eager to have those types of conversations that Shaloma was describing. And we'll be in Kenora on Monday the 18th and Fort Francis on Wednesday the 20th and Dryden on Friday the 22nd. These will be morning sessions. And we're just hoping to have as many employers and stakeholders come out to these sessions and learn about the immigration programs and options. And also, we can also meet with companies one-on-one if they have really specific questions that would align with the program. So we're excited for that. Thank you.
Well, that's very helpful to me to know, because tomorrow I'm having a meeting with economic development officers from all those regions. So I'll make sure that they know you're coming.
Thank you. And if you want to reach out, I can give you the contacts of our local colleagues and partner organizations that are involved in that.
Great, and I can see in the chat there's a lot of interest in the dates for Timmins and Sudbury. People looking at possibly connecting in other municipalities and towns when you're in the north. So what we'll do in the slide deck that we have, we'll make sure that we have those dates captured so that everybody can take a look at them and they can reach out if they're interested in setting something up. Perfect. All right. So we've come to the end of our presentation. I am just going to share my screen here. I just want to bring up the slides so that everybody has our contact information. One second here. And as Patrick has been letting us know in the chat, sorry, things are a bit slow here. We are going to be sending everybody a copy of the slide deck. This presentation will be available on our YouTube channel as well. But for quick reference, here is my contact information and Shaloma's contact information. And if you have any questions at all, please reach out. If it's something I can't address, I will definitely forward to Shaloma. So I do want to thank everybody for attending today. We had a really great turnout. And I want to thank everyone for the great questions. There were some really great questions that came out. So Shaloma, did you want to finish up with anything?
No, I just thank you all. I'm leaving this exhilarated and looking forward to the remainder of my day. And as I mentioned, yeah, we'll share out information. Hopefully we'll hear from some of you, and we'll see you in person when we are in these various areas, Sudbury, Timmins, Thunder Bay, Kenora, and the list goes on. It's only February. Remember, this is already on the docket.
Wonderful. Great. So thanks again, and feel free to reach out if you have any further questions.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Take care.